Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Inspiring April. I'm here with a prospective journalist and dis- disability advocate Matthew by Bioni, and I totally butchered his name, but welcome Matthew.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, um, when we spoke, you spoke about being essential to your high school's um disability coalition. Would you mind speaking more about that? Because I found that incredibly interesting.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, when I was about when well, I guess this is when I was a junior in high school. Um, Around October of my junior year in high school, I had come up with an idea of making of as being somebody who has a disability myself. I wished to introduce this idea into my high school, which previously hadn't been integrated before, to basically introduce a support group and an educational sort of space into the school that was the primary objective of it was to educate others about disability rights and how to treat people, how to optimally treat people with disabilities, but also to it was encouraged that it was a highly inclusive club. So, we had people who did not have disabilities who were just passionate about the respect and the civil upkeep of the club. And I was the president for well, it got introduced in my senior year, and I was the president for precisely 1 year before I had to leave and go to college. But
Right.
we did yeah, we did some stuff that I'm pretty proud of. So, I wrote a lot of lessons and presented it to my school and along with my club advisor. And we did this one thing, which was a t-shirt fundraiser. And we raised actually over $1,000 for the Hadjorn Little Village School, which is around New York, upstate New York. It's a special education center, and that went toward the advancement of their supplies and their education. So it's definitely something that I'm proud of and passionate about. And the club is still going strong even after I left. So I'm really happy to
One
see that.
wonderful film foundations, my friend. So, what inspired you as a junior in high school to really push it forward with like school officials, and what just kind of kept you going through the formation formation stage? And I asked that because a lot of people start things for advocacy and then it takes a while and then you just kind of peter out away. And how did you keep the motivation for it? I guess would be the next question.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, it's actually funny that you bring that up because while I was doing my disability advocacy club in school, I knew this kid who he was like he looked a lot older than me, but he was actually in fact like 2 years younger than me. I think he was a sophomore, and he was trying to get his own club started. And I thought that was really great, but I remember he told me that I was the inspiration for him to go out and make a club of his own, and I was like really touched by that. But the
Um,
problem with yeah, but the problem with that was he said that the arbitration process for like getting the club going at the school was like a little too stressful for him, and he kind of lost hope and it petered out. And I think that that's sort of a common experience for people. Because I know, like, when things aren't instantaneous, it's sort of disheartening, or you just don't want to expel the extra effort to or you might want to, but it's easier to have things, instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
what I think, what kept me going through that time was just being really touched about, how receptive people were to the idea. And it took about a year to get it like going and in motion, and I had to do a fair deal of advertisement and social media development and paperwork and things. But I think that it was all really worth it because it's sort of there are people who have told me that it inspired them a lot. And, I think that the primary goal of it was to offer a place of countenance and understanding for disabled persons. And I think, and beyond, and I think that that is something that I couldn't have achieved without, people being so supportive and so helpful throughout the process.
Absolutely, I can attest to that. So now, like you said that you want to go into journalism. What type of journalism are you hoping to, and how does it relate to your passions now?
Uh, um, yeah, I think that. So yeah, I'm going to school to for with the goal of being a journalist of some kind in professional communications. And if you've seen some of the videos on my channel, you know that I've interviewed some different people. And yeah, I'm just really interested in talking with people and understanding different perspectives that are different from my own. And I think that the goal for me with professional communications is actually coming from more of a place of wanting to become a writer. Um, it's this stuff is really great, the talking with people and getting, people's ideas and projects out there. But, I've always, as a kid, I've wanted to be a novelist, and I love literature and I love the spoken word, and I think that's what's kind of drawing me toward communications is because it's pretty broad in what you can do with it. But in terms of like the YouTube videos that I've uploaded, it just became a really great pastime for me, and it's become a more of a significant force in my life than I would have previously expected it to. So
It's
I
funny how
really I really enjoy doing this kind of stuff.
you definitely have an ease to it, which is very palpable. And you said something about the group effect. I may just go back so I can understand you the best that I can. What do you mean by countenance? You said helping with the group's countenance, and I I haven't heard that word used in that context before.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, I suppose you can use the word countenance in a couple. Well, when you read old novels and stuff, countenance is like a person's expression. But,
Right.
if something is countenance, then it just means that it's accepted and it's ingratiated in people's minds as something that's positive. So, um,
Integration.
yeah,
Okay, I see. Wow. So
yeah.
how does the novel writing and advocacy work that you've done in high school, um, do you see any connections to those two passions, and do you think they can work together to reinforce and better each other?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, well, in my mind, they're a little bit different, but I think as a person with a lot of different, I get pretty restless and bored pretty easily, when it comes to my different hobbies and stuff.
Yeah.
So I always have a great deal of hobbies to fall back on, and I think that, this has sort of like the disability advocacy and the journalism, it has sort of transcended being a hobby for me, at least a little bit, because well, I can actually make I can make futures in the fields if I wish to. Whereas, my other hobbies, like art and music. I like doing those as well, but it's just I think I have to be a little more realistic with myself and realize that it is a great deal harder to break into those fields because they're so saturated with talent. And
Yep.
in doing my own journalism and doing my do having done disability advocacy in the past, they were a little bit more novel as ideas. So if I were to make a career in them, I think I would have a greater, chance of success. But to answer the question, I think that they're related in that, they're very public affairs, and they're very presently, they're very hands-on, and they're both the motivation for them is both kind of impelled for the greater good. When you're doing journalism, at least in my case, you're trying to better understand a person's motivations about their work, or you're trying to promote their work as well in tandem with what you're doing, trying to understand where they're coming from. And disability advocacy was kind of a bit of the same thing. So they are kind of linked in my mind, and they do have some commonalities, but I think primarily that they're pretty different in my view, but I still love doing that stuff all the same.
That's that's very um well articulated.
Oh,
I
thank you.
really enjoy hearing your thoughts. And what do you think is trying to remember my question? What do you think is the um biggest thing that that people with disabilities face as a challenge, like the biggest challenge for our commu- community? I know I live in Canada and you the States, but I think we can share a lot of commonalities. So, what do you think is the challenge? And as a Siska question to to that, what do you think is the best solution from your experience in advocacy work?
Um, well, to answer the first question, I think that I would say I think that people with disabilities, at least in their childhood, because I'm disabled, I have a a rare genetic form of it's an abnormality called Poland syndrome, and it's very under researched and it's very rare. Um, so I think that the thing that I faced as a child, and I think what most people with disabilities face as a child, is this sense of like the world is not cut out for them, or that the
Yep.
world is actively resisting them, whether it be toward, it's kind of more subtly ingrained, things within the system that do not lend themselves to the um, experience of having a disability. Or, what I faced a lot was the social aspect of it, which was you get shunned a lot, or you either get shunned in my experience, or you get almost treated like an animal at the zoo where you're asked a lot of questions about yourself,
Yep.
and that could be very dehumanizing. Um, and I think that if there's something that's a universal experience to us, it's that, I would say, is this feeling of just not knowing where you fit in, or feeling like you don't fit in at all, and just constantly having to grapple with that as a way of life. And it was really like this insidious thing for me growing up. And one of the reasons why I founded this club was I figured that if I could promote advocacy and empathy and communion in the face of of discrimination, or even lesser, not even discrimination per se, but just I just wanted more understanding um, for our experience. And I think that, a lot of people have told me that ever since I introduced the club, that they had become cognizant of things that they weren't cognizant of before, whether it be how to treat somebody, just anybody, or, what steps to take when addressing somebody. And, that makes me really, really happy and elated, because that was one of the main goals of the club, and that we were able to accomplish that, admittedly on a pretty small scale. It gave me a lot of hope. And I think that in general, we're moving toward you still have some people who think that it's okay to make off-color jokes about people who are disabled, and that is obviously, as harmless as they think that is, it's still harmful.
Yep.
Um, and it's still not appreciated. But I think that in general, we're moving toward a bit of a more progressive outlook, at least among my peers, people
Yes.
18, 19, 20. And I think that that is really valuable.
Yes, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that we are moving forward. And just for somebody who doesn't know, what were some of the initial steps that you introduced in the club, let's say, um, to help somebody who doesn't know disability to kind of break that ice in a way that's not offensive? Because I think we're in this very, and you can disagree with me for sure, but we're in this very touchy time right now, and I think people are like, I don't know what to do before.
Mhm.
So how would you assuage that fear if I don't want to make a mistake?
Um, I think that I think that I was pretty, I was pretty well aware of the fact that this club that I had started in high school would be a little different than a lot of the other clubs that were cropping up in my high school, because you had a lot of hobbyist clubs, like, you had the people who crochet and the people who were into robotics, and those are really cool too, and those are very encouraging for people who are just getting into those activities. But I think that I knew that what I wanted to do was a bit more of a heavy task, and it would require a great deal more work, because not only is the actual work of it, pretty, I did quite a I did quite a deal of managing the club, and I was also the host and the president, and I was involved with most of the activities we did there. No, I'm not actually. I will give a shout out to my club advisor in high school, Miss Jamie Salona. She was great, and she actually took my idea and expanded on it in ways that I would never have thought possible. So, thank you very much to her. Um, but yeah, I think I knew that it would probably be a tougher sell for most people.
Yeah.
Um, because I just think people were, in high school, people are, they're all kind of doing their own thing, and
Yep.
they're all kind of learning what is acceptable, and what they want their personality to be. And I met a lot of people who their personality is, I'm gonna just be offensive for the sake of being offensive, as like an attempt at humor. And a lot of times, coupled in that sense of humor, is this disregard for the disenfranchised, or maybe the less immediately um yeah, for the disenfranchised, for the historically disenfranchised. And I think that, I knew that among that crowd, it was probably going to be looked at kind of incredulously a little bit. But I think the main thing was to just remember the tenets of why I set out to do this. And that that willpower and that drive and motivation for me to do it, it superseded everything else. So that's how I was able to really bypass those initial concerns and just, help the club flourish and kind of adhere to everybody's collective vision.
Right, that's beautiful, by the way. And what were the tenets that kept you going? Like you spoke of, I stuck to the tenets, and I just want to press on that. What were they essentially?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. I think my objectives were to I wanted I did want to well my initial prospects for the club were pretty small.
Right.
But then as I saw, that more people were interested in the club, I began to think about it in terms of a grander picture. And I think the thing that solidified it for me was when I saw, how supportive a lot of people were and, how willing they were to accept perspectives that were different from their own and the kindness in the face of that. It does remind you that there is, true beauty, in the world. And I think that was one of the inspirations was just knowing that there is a place in society for a club like this and for people like us. And I think that's what definitely drove me, even in the harder moments of trying to start the club up and, maybe people don't necessarily understand what I'm trying to do or, it just
Mm-hmm.
takes quite a bit of time. Um, that was definitely like the driving factor and it was very important. And yeah, just to educate people on the experience of others that are different from them and to provide as I said before countenance and empathy. If I could get a heightened sense of empathy for one person, let alone 20 or 25 or however, what was our highest capacity as a club, that is like huge for me. So
Well, those on the record, he's kissing his own 20s and he has the humility of like a 35-year-old. So, that's beautiful. And that's very inspiring. Can you tell the me and the audience what was the watershed moment? Like, what was the moment where you said, "Okay, I'm starting this club. It's going to take a lot," but what was the initiating moment? Yeah.
I think that the it's actually very I think it would kind of be easy for me to say that there was I don't know if I could say that it was a watershed moment as much as it was kind of years of gradually marinating and kind of simmering as an idea or not as an idea but
Mm-hmm.
as a sort of thing that I wanted to accomplish, but I didn't have the skills or the audience or the follow through at the time to articulate and to actualize it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that so when first came up with the idea in my junior year, it was all very spur of the moment. I think I came up with it, on the bus to school in this kind of, cartoony, when a light bulb kind of hovers above your head sort of
Yes,
way.
I've had those moments too. Yes.
Yeah, this ding,
Yeah.
Um, but I think, it was more of it was sort of it was an evolving kind of thing. Going back to when I had experiences doing this sort of work, not exactly this sort of work, but in the sixth grade, right before I entered middle school, which was actually merged with my high school. Um, I was the president of our elementary school. And I think that one of my ideas that never got picked up was actually kind of a more embryonic version of what I did my last year of high school. So it was certainly something that had been ringing around in my mind, and it
Mhm.
kind of came full circle. It took a good 6 years for me to concretize and to get situated, but it did happen, and yeah, it was great. So.
Yeah, that's great. I admire you for your patience because, like, me, I'm one of those people who have an idea and I just went bing. But for you to just pick good, I find that very inspiring. And fortunately, we're in the last 10 minutes. So what would you say is something that someone could do in a small way to like get rid of or in a small way to kind of bridge the gap between um disabled and non-disabled folks as your club did, and as a result still reach people after you're gone. Like, what's a tip you can have for somebody who just doesn't know how to start the conversation but really wants to move forward and communicate, or if they have a dream.
Um, I would say that it does sound a little bit like a cliche, but and cliches are cliches because they're the truth, no matter how oversaturated they are or
Yep.
overexpressed they are. But I would say that well, I'll answer the two sides of that coin, which is um I think one, if you want to try and do something, um not to say that what I did is remarkable, but if you want to do something that leaves a mark, or that is for the greater good and is kind of grander than yourself, I think you do have to take quite a bit of risks. um Not risks that are particularly, they're more kind of psychological. I think you have to kind of know that not everybody is going to necessarily understand what you're trying to do at first. And that's
Yep.
actually a good thing because it's a window for further explanation and further further kind of indictment. Um, I don't know if that's the right word. There was a word for that. I was blanking on it, but yeah, further initiation is what I
Yep.
meant to say. So I think that that is definitely a pertinent aspect of of doing something like this. And the second thing that I would say is, well, I would say that you should try to, I think, understanding perspectives that are different from your own, not only for people who have disabilities, but for people of different creeds or of different races or different religions, or all of these spiritual and cultural touchstones. I think that once you sort of, as you said, I love that you said bridge that gap, because it really is. I think that if there's something that we should do now more than ever is to understand perspectives that are different from what we know and what we hold dear and what we might fight for in a moment of true valiance. I think that that is incredibly important. And it kind of goes back to, it's sort of a Martin Luther King-esque way of thinking, but, this sense of compassion and advocacy
Yep.
and getting along and harmoniousness. And he's definitely a thinker that I thought of a lot when I was coming up with the idea for the club. And yeah, I would say that my main 2 points are just that. So.
Empathy. but what if that's super overwhelming? Like, what's the tiny step someone could just give so it's not like this big, I have to read everything that's against my opinion? Because
Hmm.
that happens get people killed. It's like, so how would you suggest like someone just take it slow? I guess would be my
Um,
section question.
yeah, yeah. I would say to you know, just remember the greater idea you have in your head, and remember that things are probably they're gonna come. They can come as very piecemeal and very, patchwork, and they don't come all at once. But I think that another cliche, but I think that it's true, is, that can lead to a greater sense of satisfaction in the end because it wasn't so instantaneously
Great.
achieved. And to just know that there definitely will be roadblocks and obstacles along the way, but that's sort of a rite of passage, and it's part of the territory for sure. So just to never get discouraged, even though it might be easy and it might be a more um a more enticing way to be, just to never give up and always see your vision through.
Amen. And the last question is, what inspires you to keep going and don't wait as of everybody? So I'm not trying to make it into super, person, but what inspires you to keep going during the hard times?
Um, I think, yeah, I mean, I have difficulties every day. I have difficulties just like every other person. You know, um, for my family are going through a personally rough spot, right now, and I think that it's very important to just remember that your situation now is not necessarily going to be your situation forever, and
Yes, things
yep,
are
and you
temporary.
shouldn't, yeah, and you shouldn't never throw in the towel on something that is a temporary over a temporary issue, I think. As because life could be very, very tumultuous and very difficult, and for everybody. I think that the thing that keeps me going is more broadly, I would say, art, definitely. I think art is has a magical way of articulating things that we can't in regular life, and it's definitely worth fighting for. And the other thing I would say that keeps me going is just the possibility of a tomorrow, and the fact that, to keep getting new opportunities each day is really like a gift. So um
Beautiful.
yeah, and just never knowing what's going to be next. I think that curiosity is very enticing for me, and it's a very permeative thing for me when times are especially tumultuous or rough. So that's what I would say to people going through their own hardships.
That that's beautiful. And any final thoughts that you just like to share in these last minute and a half?
Oh yeah, totally. Well, I would say to I have a YouTube channel which I do discussions on, and sometimes I upload random videos there and some music oriented things there. If you would like to check that out, I'd appreciate it. And yeah, but more importantly, just thank you for having me. Thank you for having me on your channel. I really like the work that you do, and I think you're doing great. And just thank you again.
You're, you're welcome. It was an absolute pleasure, and I will definitely check out your channel more. This has been inspiring and able. Thanks, everyone.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye. Taking Espero que cookies please stand by.
If if you want through email, I can send you to put in the description of the video. I have my old club has an Instagram page.
Please.
Um, I can send that to you as well. So,
Okay, and also the link to your YouTube channel would be great. But everybody's hearing
yeah.
this, but have a good day.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. And if you need any help, like with the uploading or the videos, or just, just text me or email me.
Absolutely.
Hmm. All right,
I
well,
hope
have a
you
good
go.
night.
I hope you get my office hearing back. But have a good night. Thank you, Matthew.
All right, see ya.
See you.